Welcome. In this video, we're going to talk about the SVG path commands. SVGs can be added and used in many different ways, and there are many different SVG elements, as you can see over here, but the most popular one is definitely the path. A lot of the SVG design is just basically editing paths, and that's with good reason because path is probably the most powerful element in SVGs. It can be used to draw any shape that you want pretty much. And so that's what we're going to be explaining today. So in order to get started, I want to draw your attention to the view box over here. That's very, very important because it works in conjunction with the path element. So the SVG's view box, we set it to 100 by 100 over here, and it's a square-shaped SVG. So you have to design this up front before you actually start, putting in a bunch of path elements, because they're going to be scaled accordingly. So whatever scale that you set here, when you say 100, you're basically partitioning the entire view of the SVG to 100. And the view box X and view box Y, so these can be used for, taking like a cropping area of the entire view box. But in this case, we're not going to be doing that. We're not going to be dealing with overflows or hidden areas. It's just going to be simple 100 by 100 square SVG. And yeah, that's what we're going to be using as the basis. So we're going to be adding an SVG path into our SVG. And by default, it adds this heart shape. And you can see all the paths, all the commands, they work within the 100 scale. So that's why I was saying that's very important. Otherwise, it would look, let me show you what that would look like. So, if you increase the view box width, you can see that we're getting further and further away from the, this is based on the 100 index. So that's why it just gets smaller. All right. And one thing to note here, for the path, we have the red fill and the black stroke. So that's basically what you're seeing here, minor styling. All right. So this is what we're going to be talking about here today. So the commands to the SVG and for the path. So all commands should start or must start, if they're properly formed, with a move. So move basically sets our starting position of wherever we want to start drawing from. So in this case, we're saying 10 to 30. So that corresponds to somewhere in here, x10, y30. So it corresponds somewhere over here. And as you can see, I can actually change it. So like x, I can move the x point out, y point down. So you can actually adjust these points, so you can see where it is. And it also, so there's like a bunch of commands here: draw an arc, draw a quadratic curve. So you can see if you remove certain commands, certain sections of them are going to be gone. But ultimately, all paths should end with the end path command, which basically connects the last point that you drew to the beginning of the path. And so that's basically how the path command works. So in order to show how the drawing commands work, I'm just going to be deleting a bunch of these commands, and I'm going to start with the simplest one, move move. So in this case, we moved, I want to set it to maybe about 5x coordinate and maybe about 50. So we're starting from the middle here. And I'm going to be adding another command. And let's start with the horizontal. So horizontal is basically a simple line. So we're going to start with the lines, and then we're going to move on to curves. So there are 3 line commands and 3 curve commands. So we're starting with the horizontal line. Horizontal line is very, very simple. So, I'm just saying, for example, in this case, whatever the last point is, go horizontal until you hit x88 point. So that's basically the normal version. And there is also a relative version. So this is the absolute version because we're giving the absolute coordinate here. We're saying 93. or I can say relative, in which case I'm basically saying wherever you are, go 85 units to the right. So that's basically the relative position is. We can also do vertical. So it can go vertical. Same thing, vertical, and these can go negative as well. So you can go in either direction. And same thing with relative. You can go negative. Move, we talked about. Line is the third line command. So in this case, we're giving the x and y coordinates. And from wherever we are, we go to that particular point. Again, there is a relative version of this. So you can, for all the commands, you can use the relative versions. So the absolute versions specify the exact coordinate. The relative versions specify the delta from wherever you ended up last. All right. The other one, so now we're onto the curves. So there are three curve commands. One of them is quadratic, which is the second degree parabola. And then we have cubic curves, which is third degree parabola. And we got the arcs, which is like drawing a circle. So that's the circle shape directly, like an arc. So let's start with the quadratic curve. All the curves have a different number of points, but they all, parameters, but they all specify basically how the curve should be drawn. And the quadratic curve has only two options, so we're 2 points. So we're defining x1 and point 1 and point 2. So as you can see here, the last one is where we're going to be ending up. The first one is wherever we want the curve to pass from. So I can say, for example, I want the curve to pass from this point, and then it will draw it accordingly. So that's very similar to the Bezier curves. In fact, it's a Bezier curve for quadratic. All right, and like I said, you can do the relative versions of this. There's a smooth smooth quadratic curve. So all the curves have smooth options. So that's basically for the first point. It's the same exact command as the whatever the non-smooth version is. The smooth version basically just takes the first point and makes it wherever you're starting from. So that's basically smooths out the curve a little bit, and also it reduces the parameter count that you have to enter. So in this case, as you can see, I have a smooth quadratic curve, but because we did not end with a curve, it just ends up being something like a line. All right. So next up, we have the cubic curve. Again, very similar. We have 3 points to play around with. This is very, very powerful because now we can actually start drawing shapes like it's going inverted like this. So you can create interesting shapes with cubic curve. Again, there is the smooth cubic curve version that just makes it a little bit smaller. And then finally, we have the arc. So this is the actual circle-like drawing. So I'm going to try to make a circle in this case. So we have, I think this is 50, this is 50. So I think this is 5, this is 95. So we have a good centered line over here. Radius x and radius y is basically where we want the top one to be. So radius x doesn't make much difference initially, but once you set the radius y, so now we can actually put some curve into it. And then the x-axis rotation, I'm not entirely sure how this works, to be honest with you, but it does, smooth out the curve however you want it. And large arc, it just draws this interesting, it just makes it a bigger arc than compared to so basically it's the opposite side of the circle if you were to have a circle. And sweep just puts it to the other side. All right. So and then finally, you should use the end path to to be able to connect it squarely. And yeah, this is very powerful. So once you create a shape like this, you can reduce the SVG width, and it's not going to be losing any resolution. All right, that's about it. Thank you very much for watching.